My guest today is a wife, mother, Bible teacher, and successful author. She loves to help both men and women navigate their God-given callings. She's here to talk about her ministry and tell us about her intriguing new book, Taking the 5 Leaps, Experiencing God's Faithfulness as You Respond to His Call. Please welcome back Rachel G. Scott. How are you doing today?
Good. Thank you so much for having me today.
Well, it's always good to have you here, and I know that you have this new book out, but before we just jump into that, just share with our viewers that maybe aren't familiar with you a little bit more about your ministry.
Yes, so I have a ministry called I Can't Come Down, and it's really based on helping people walk in their purpose and assignment and take bold leaps of faith. So both men, women, I have a Facebook community that's called Women on the Wall. We come together, we pray, we read the Word of God together, and we're just encouraging each other in our walk with Christ.
Well, that's awesome. Now, again, these 5 leaps, I want to hear what they all are. I don't know if we have time to get into all of these, but tell us what kind of led you to write the book. You mentioned kind of in your ministry, you're already helping people to take those leaps in their walk, but what led to this book here?
So I actually had someone that I was mentoring for a little while, and she was a healthcare worker, but she loved to write. And we were working together one day, and she's like, Rachel, what do I do? I'm really passionate about my writing, but at the same time, I can't walk away from everything that I'm doing. It's helping to take care of my family. You know, it's important to just what's going on in the world. What am I supposed to do? And after that conversation, I just really started to think about my own journey and how many times I felt led to do something, to walk away from something, to step away from something, because I wanted to do what God called me to do. I wanted to obey Him. And so I tend to ask God questions in my Bible time with Him. I'm like, Lord, how do you do this? You know, what does this look like? So I asked Him 2 questions. I said, God, is this the only way that we can obey the prompting that you are giving us? Do we have to walk away from everything? And if not, show me someone in the Bible who has done other types of leaps. And He did just that, and that's where the 5 leaps came from.
Wow. Now, I want to just catch on to one thing you talked about there of just mentoring people. And when we talk about taking these leaps in life or just growing in our life, our faith, our journey, I think mentorship is very important. So talk a little bit, and I'm going to ask this from both sides, but you mentioned mentoring someone. Talk about the importance, not just for that person you may be mentoring, but for you to have that way of kind of sharing your knowledge with someone else. And I'm not going to call out any mistakes you may have made, but I know from mentoring, sometimes a big part of that is helping others not have to go through the same mistakes that we've gone through.
Right, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And that is what I try to do in my mentoring, is I'm trying to help them not have to walk through the same thing, the struggles, the challenges, but also be that listening ear. Because oftentimes we already know the solution. God has already been giving it to us, but we need to be confident that, number one, we hear His voice, and that we're not the only one that He's called to do this. So it's important that the mentor has actually been through some of those same things and can attest to God is going to walk you through this. You're not going to do this on your own.
Well, and then let me ask you from the other side, the importance of having mentors in our life, because for whatever reason, sin nature, so many times we want to think we got it all figured out. We can do it on our own. We don't need help. We don't even want to go to God in prayer, let alone have to humble ourselves and ask somebody. But we can grow so much more if we surround ourselves with people that can help us to grow, that have been through some of those life journeys that we haven't been through yet. So what would you say to someone that may need a mentor but be a little stubborn about it right now?
I was going to say mentoring is a posture of humility, right? You've got to be willing to admit things. You've got to be willing to recognize that, you know, you can't do this on your own. So I say we need 3 people in our life. We need someone who's been through it, someone who's in it, and someone who has a ton of wisdom. And so the mentor gets to come alongside you as someone who has been through it, so that you know you can make it through it, so that you know that you are able to walk through whatever journey that seems uncomfortable, unfamiliar, because someone else has been along the journey as well. So it's an absolute necessity as part of our journey.
Wow, well, the viewers want to know, they're like, Tom, I'm not worried about what you're interested in. You're getting off on this whole tangent on mentoring. Tell us what the 5 leaps are. What are viewers and readers going to take away when they get this book?
That is such a great question. I love this question. So the 5 leaps, I'll tell you what they are first, and then I'll give a little synopsis of each one. So we have the tent maker, the builder, the shepherd, the trailblazer, and oh goodness, I'm missing one of the leaps. the fisherman. So the fisherman, the tent maker, the builder, the shepherd, and the trailblazer. So the fisherman is the person who God calls to completely walk away from everything. That's the one that we are most often familiar with, is just walking away from everything to do what God called you to do. While the tent maker is someone who they're still on their job, but they may start a ministry, a business, write a book on the side. But it's essentially when your calling and your career occupy space in the same season. So you're not walking away from everything like with the fisherman. The shepherd is when God is calling you to relocate. He's giving you new territory. And then the builder is when you temporarily walk away from your job, your career, but you go back to it. And then the trailblazer is the person who has done them all. They've done every single leap. And now they're called to mentor or disciple someone else through it, but also to understand that we are called to live a leaping lifestyle. I say we're going to be leaping all the way until we get to heaven. So we may as well just get used to it.
Wow. So, well, the trailblazer has kind of gone through all that, and many people may find themselves taking these different leaps in different phases of their life. But to some extent, it kind of sounds like many of these are different callings that God may have placed on our lives. Maybe we don't have to do all 5 of the leaps, but talk a little bit to those that may be looking for what their calling is. And maybe they're seeing, yes, that different people take different paths in life. Maybe they have different doors that seem to be in front of them and they're not really sure which way they should go. How do you help recognize what God has called you to?
This question I get often, and one thing I tell people to do is look back to the last thing God told you to do. What was the last thing he actually led you to do? But also consider, what is it that people are always telling you you're really good at? What is that thing that you just think it's natural? I've been doing this for a long time, but you're actually really good at doing that thing. But because it's natural to you, you don't see it as part of your gifting. All of those things contribute to what he's calling you to do.
Wow. Now, for those that may be going through a transition, you mentioned that sometimes you go through many of these or all of these in your life. And some of these, I think when we talk about God's calling, we think, oh, this is always a positive thing. If God's calling me to do it, everything's going to be perfect. His Spirit's going to lead me every step of the way, and I'm going to know exactly what to do. I'm not going to have any setbacks. And then that we all know that's not really how life works. We get discouraged. And so what would you say to someone that's maybe going through that transition of going through one of these leaps and maybe not really knowing how to deal with some of those things?
I would say have faith in God. You know, look back on his history and the faithfulness that you have experienced and encountered with him throughout your life. Because oftentimes what he does is he prepares us for the plan that he wants us to step into, that he wants us to execute. So often we think, you know, I gotta plan this thing out, and then I'm gonna prepare for it, and then I'm gonna move forward. But in the kingdom, he's actually spending years and years preparing us, which a lot of us don't like because we're ready to just go into it. But he's preparing us for that plan. So look back and see, how has he already been preparing me for this thing that he is calling me to do?
Well, and tying into that, I want to ask you, and this is a question that I like asking authors because so often writing a book is taken with that approach of, oh, I know what I'm going to write about. I know what these 5 leaps are going to be. I got it all planned out. I just got to get it on paper. And then you get into the process and realize that maybe you're learning some things along the way, or maybe God is giving you some things that maybe you didn't think about before you got into the process. So is there anything that would be surprising to you that ended up in this book?
Yes, I had to surrender. I had to surrender my expectation of what the book was going to be and really lean into what God was saying about this book and who the book was for and the message that he wanted. And I also had to surrender the expectation, I even talk about this in the book, that it was all on me, that I had to do everything. It's a partnership with God. We are coming alongside his great plan for the earth. And so when we remember that, then all the pressure isn't on us. And that was a big thing that I had to do, surrender and say, okay, it's not all on me. I'm a yielded vessel that he's willing to use, that he's using, but all the pressure, all the weight is not on me.
Wow, and I know that our viewers are going to want to get this book, but for those that got to know now or that before they read it, they want to hear from the author. What are some of the takeaways here? What would you say is the biggest topic in this book, or the biggest thing that you want readers to get from it?
Yeah, that's a great question. That there is more than one way to take a leap. That one thing that most of us fear of, I have to walk away from it all, is not the only way to do it. And so we will see biblical characters and how God led these biblical characters into taking these leaps, and they were still obeying what God called them to do in the way that he called them to do it.
Wow, that's really powerful, because I think so many times we do, and rightfully so, look to the Bible as our example, but we get a little bit too caught up in the details and not really what God's trying to tell us in the story of, oh, I got to do it in this exact way, in this exact order. Or maybe even when we look at mentors, we look at somebody that has been successful, they've done something we wanted to do, and we think, well, I got to be exactly like them. And you spend so much time trying to be exactly like them that you don't become yourself, and you don't end up with your calling. And even if it may be related, even if it's in the same kind of ministry or the same kind of business, whatever it is that God has gifted you with. And so, Rachel, thank you so much for sharing with us today, for writing the book. For those that want to get Taking the 5 Leaps by Rachel G. Scott, tell us how they can connect more with your ministry, get your book.
Yeah, anywhere online. You can go to rachelgscott.com, but wherever books are sold, the books will be there. Go ahead, grab your copy. But if you go to rachelgscott.com, there's more information about the book. There's a quiz on there. So if you're wondering what your leap style is, you can go on there, take that quiz, learn more about yourself, and then grab the book.
Well, thank you again for being with us today, for taking time to share with us.